Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Graniterock's final product knowledge seminar. My name is Jackie Serrano, and I will be your host today. For today's seminar, we have a very special guest who is an expert in the world of natural stone products. For everyone's information, we will be recording this session to grant replay access to those who are unable to join our live event today. Before we get started, we ask everyone to please keep yourselves muted and camera turned off. The chat is open, so we encourage questions or comments throughout the meeting. If you happen to have a question, please add it to the chat section and we will try to answer them as soon as possible. I will now hand it off to Reed.
Thank you, Jackie. Little introduction here. So the format of this video here is to basically introduce everyone here to Rademann Stone as a company, to Wisconsin natural limestone as a whole, how we fabricate our material, how we quarry our material, and also how our company came to be from the beginning. So Rademann Stone as a company, we're fourth generations, family-owned company, began back in the 50s and 60s as actually a landscape installation company. We've always been involved in the quarry side of the business in some facet and have recently ramped up in the past 20, 25 years. Initially being in landscape install, we purchased our first quarry, our Fond du Lac location, to give ourselves a little bit of a competitive advantage in our material, with the concept being that if we're installing the material that we are quarrying, we'll have a little bit of a competitive advantage, and then also purchase nurseries throughout Wisconsin to give ourselves a competitive advantage in the soft goods. As the labor market changed in the 90s, we began to actually pull out of the landscape install and move more towards the landscape distribution portion of the company. In the early 2000s, we then began to take it one step further, where we were really only strong in the Chicago market with our landscape stone goods. We began to produce, quarry, and fabricate masonry material. And then in the kind of the middle of the 2000s there, early 2000s, we actually got our first thin saw, began fabricating thin veneer natural stone. And that is kind of the springboard which leads our company to where it is today. So this right here, this is our Fond du Lac location. Our headquarters are this little tiny building here. This was taken in about 2010. Much different looking now currently because we've opened up much more land, stripped more land, done an addition on the building, got a little bit more fabrication involved. And we actually also have our local resale yard here too. So we do distribute our own materials into the Fond du Lac location as well. Kind of take you through all of our quarries here now. As a company, we've got 3 different quarry locations that we mine. This location here, our Fond du Lac location, being our largest, we pull within 50 to 60% of our company revenue out of this one location, without a doubt the highest demand product we have. We've got a pretty good setup here in terms of lean fabrication. Really, there's no waste here with the exception of diesel fuel and our packaging materials. The top layer here in the quarry, if you can see my mouse, that is shredded black dirt, silt. So we'll strip that off, we'll recycle that, we'll use that locally for our local contractors to sell as shredded black dirt and other fill goods. The next layer in our quarry here, we call our crushed stone overburden layer. So all of our quarries have some sort of overburden before we get down to the good bedrock material. And in this specific quarry, we're at about a 60 to 65 foot height on that back wall right there. Essentially what we'll do is we'll blow all that wall out, and then we'll use it to feed our crushed stone division. The product that we predominantly produce there is road gravel, aggregates, and backfill for landscape products. Very commodity driven product, low cost good. We're typically limited within a 15-mile radius that we can move that material because it is such a commodity good that, you know, the cost of the material is typically in the transportation and not the material.
Like from here.
What was that?
Go ahead. I think it was someone that had their microphone.
Okay, no, we're all good there. And then from there, the next layer we get down to in our Fond du Lac location here is the actual bedrock that, you know, the Rademann stone that we distribute nationally gets involved in. From this quarry here directly, we produce 3 different colors. We produce our Fond du Lac material, which is a very dense gray. We produce our carbon material, which is a chocolate Hershey color material, just a little bit darker material. And then we produce a weathered edge. And what a weathered edge material is in the Wisconsin quarries is essentially it's a seam or a vein in the quarry where water just ran over the face for thousands and thousands of years and actually oxidized the face of the material. So here we essentially quarry this like an onion. Think of it as we're picking it out layer by layer. Here domestically in the United States, there's predominantly two different types of quarries. There's a shell quarry and a block quarry. A block quarry being where you're pulling this material out typically in 8,000 to 12,000 pound blocks, and a shell quarry being where you're picking it piece by piece by piece. And that is what we are here. Everything we do is two-stage blasting. We'll get into that a little bit here moving forward. We tier all of our layers in this quarry. So we're typically quarrying anywhere from 5 to 7 ledges at a time. This gives us two different benefits. Number one, it forces all of our water down into the lower blocks here where we're able to recycle the water. So that way, if we do get a ton of rain, we can just push some of our loader crews up towards the top. And then it also gives us area to quarry two to three different products. These higher layers tend to have a thicker material in it, whereas the lower layers tend to have a thinner material. So if we have larger projects going with thinner material, we can allocate labor down low. Or if we have projects going where we need more carbon material, we can allocate more quarry labor towards different parts of the quarry. So having more of an open area allows us to basically diversify the product that we're producing based on the demand. Right here, this quarry wall, when Liz, Mark, and those guys were all here, they were able to see some of this stuff. The bottom layer here, this is what we call our carbon material. It's a very dark vein material. Over time tends to fade out pretty quickly. And then up on this top layer, this is our Fond du Lac material. Like I said, about 50% of our company revenue comes from this one quarry location, just based on the current demand. And then you'll get this little tiny gold piece right here. It's a much more rare formation in our quarry, but that is the weathered edge where material has oxidized over the course of thousands and thousands of years. Our next quarry, this is without a doubt our smallest quarry. In Wisconsin, there's not a lot of buff material around anymore, and you typically quarry that at the top layers. So what we've actually done is we've opened up another quarry about a half mile to a mile away from our Fond du Lac location. We began quarrying the top layers to get ourselves a buff material. This material we predominantly move in the Midwest. When we're competing with the Texas material, their freeze thaw and their absorption rates are much less. They have less integrity as far as the material goes than a Wisconsin material. So we've had good luck supplementing. We've had good luck supplementing the Texas, the softness or the absorption rates of Texas material, the cream colors, with our buff material here locally in Wisconsin, while still having a very dense freeze thaw and a very low absorption with the material. Out of this quarry, we're predominantly producing two materials, which is kind of this buff material and then also a weathered edge as well. More of a rubble quarry than an actual ledge quarry, but we do produce some very colorful material out of this location. Our third quarry, we call it our Northern Quarry. It's in Ripon, Wisconsin. We actually had a good project inside Pebble Beach with Graniterock and this material. We actually took some of our northern rustic material and tumbled it up, and the mason installed it with a very tight lay. Out of this location, we're producing two different colors. We're producing our Sierra Gray material, which is a very tight grain, dense blue vein material with some gray variegation through it. And we also produce our northern rustic material, which is a gold vein and does have some variegated striation through it. Pretty unique formation in terms of Wisconsin offering. Predominantly Wisconsin stones are typically a gray or a mauve. So this quarry has really allowed us to diversify our offering in terms of what we can bring to the end consumer. Here's some of the ledges there. This is actually the ledge we pulled the project in Pebble Beach from because this is the Sierra Gray ledge that we do. The nice thing that we have going for us as we ship out to the West Coast is that regardless of what quarry we're pulling material from, it all picks up at one location, so it makes it very easy to blend containers from all three quarries, and whether we need a thin veneer, a full veneer, or a landscape stone offering, it all picks up at one location. So now you kind of got an idea of the quarries we have to offer. We begin to get in how do you extract the material. So everything we do, coming back to the process that we have, everything we do is a two-stage blasting. We have to remove the aggregate overburden. So right here, this is a video. This is about a 35,000 ton aggregate blast. And the point of this blast is strictly to remove overburden. So we really don't care if we damage the material. And if anything, we actually want to make the material smaller so that it's easier to process. So those are pretty darn cool blasts. You know, you got to stand about a half mile, quarter mile away from them. You have to clear the quarry. You know, you typically see them, feel them, then you hear them. It's like a sonic boom. It's pretty darn cool. And then from there, all of that material would go into our aggregate crushing and used as road gravel locally.
Reed, how often do you guys do the blast?
So we have two different blasts. Those aggregate blasts during the summer when we're crushing. So we have construction season locally. That's the material that we can typically only move about 15-mile radius. If we're lucky, we can probably move it to a 30-mile radius, but that's, you know, very, very here and there. So those blasts we're typically doing every week, every other week during the heat of the summer when our road construction is going on. Our shatter blasts that we do, we have to outsource these larger blasts because we don't have an on-staff guy that's licensed to do those, you know, 60, 65 foot tall blasts. So I think the safe answer to that is probably throughout the year. I bet we'll probably do 25 to 30 of those. And then from there, when we get down to our shatter blast that we can actually do in-house, we have guys that are trained for blasting, licensed for blasting. We're typically doing ledge blasting, typically 2 to 3 times per week. And that's what this is right here. So these blasts, I actually think these blasts are cooler. They're not as powerful, but what we're trying to do here is, because we're like the page of a book or an onion, right? We're picking it out piece by piece by piece. We're purposefully trying to push this wall out, separate all the veins, and break all the imperfections in the material so that we're not processing waste or processing material that's going to break further down the line. And this is cool because you can literally see the layers in the material separate. And, you know, typically when people come here, we've got something set up for them to see. So yeah, the point of those is literally just to loosen the layers of the material and allow our loader forks to get in and pick out the larger blocks that are too heavy to process by hand. And then from here, we'll call in the loaders and they'll begin to extract those blocks. And most of the blocks that the loaders are going to be extracting there, those are going to be used for either saw blocks or, you know, for a cut drywall or a landscape product. Those are kind of our premium blocks, and it allows us to produce a good sawn material. Then from there, we actually have to start doing hand labor. And what we're going to begin doing from there is we're working on probably 8 to 12 pallets of material at all times. And we begin sorting the material based on thickness and depth. And this is where we're literally grading it to figure out what product it's going to go to. And that's exactly what's happening here. You know, you've got some patio material here. You've got some material that's going to be machine split for your full veneer. This is probably going to be machine split as well. Machine split. You've got your saw blocks right back there. And you've got some of your landscape material right there. So basically grading material is the next stage that happens at the quarry level. Then we kind of fast forward a little bit. The process that happens in between the extraction and the fabrication is we have transfer trucks that go in between the quarry and the fabrication facilities every single day. They're just running round trip and they're taking that raw material and getting it up to the fabrication plant where we can then process the material and make it into a finished good. So most of the material from Wisconsin, it's too dense to process with a wire saw. Basically, one of two things would happen if we process with a wire saw, and that would be the wire would deviate if it's going too fast, or it would just have to process so slow that it's not even efficient to produce. So what we do is we wet wheel saw everything here, and basically this wheel saw will pass back and forth, wet of course, and you know it'll basically drop about a ½ inch each pass to saw through the material and saw the material to height if heights are needed. So very, very slow process there. But it's one that allows us to we typically lay that material here in the Midwest. We have more of a need for a full veneer product that can be laid very, very efficiently with a mortar joint, whereas, out west, you guys don't require a mortar joint quite as much. We're sawing most of that material to a 2 1/4, 5, and 7 3/4 inch height, which, allows for a 1/2 inch control joint. From there, every single piece of material that goes through our quarry, we're going to machine split it. This just allows us to square up the ends, make the mason installer a little bit easier to install. And we'll take on a little bit more waste at the quarry level here so that we're not shipping waste material. We typically machine split all 4 sides of this material, and this is the machine that we use to do that. We're typically running 4 of those at all times. Just put on a little expansion on our facility, should allow us long-term to hold 4 more splitters. And that was our current constraint. Now quarry extraction is our constraint. Then from there, after it hits the splitters, you can basically send that material into one of 2 sellable goods. One, you can sell it as full veneer. Our dominant full veneer markets are here in the Midwest, just because once you begin shipping really outside the Midwest, freight becomes kind of your limiting factor there. And you can fit about 880 square feet of full veneer on a flatbed, whereas you can fit about 3,300 square feet of thin veneer on a flatbed. So it allows you to dilute that freight cost into the cost of the material when you're shipping thin veneer. So these are our thin saws we use to process. This saw here on the left is just a flat saw. So basically all we're doing is we're shearing off the face of this material to about 1 1/4 inch thickness. And that keeps us within that 15 pounds per square foot area. And then this saw over here, that is a corner blade. So we're running 2 blades on that saw, and it basically allows you to V-notch out so that you can still get the same aesthetic appeal and return on your corners as a full veneer, with a skilled mason. This product right here that's on the pallets, that's some of our Sierra Gray material, and it is a stock product at Graniterock there. This saw, once again, another stock product actually at Graniterock. So it's a 12-blade gang saw. Think of it as 12 wheels on a treadmill that are wet at all times, and basically we'll take a natural top and bottom. We didn't have much demand in our patio material for a 3/4 to 1 1/4 flagstone, basically because it's not traffic grade. So we started taking that material that wasn't traffic grade, 3/4 to 1 1/4, and we began sawing the top and the bottom of it to make it within a thin veneer specification. We started selling a pretty cost-efficient material that can be laid commercially, installed very quickly, and low cost to compete with the cultured stone material. So this was kind of our solution to get rid of a 3/4 to 1 1/4 layer that didn't have much demand, make a product that has very easy install, and then also compete with the cultured stone price point and availability as well. We'll also do a little bit of custom tooling for the most part, and Liz and Bronson and Mark, they can all attest that we're more of a straight shop. All of our cuts are going to be straight. We don't do too much ramp and twist currently, but we do some custom fabrication. I would say we're pretty limited in it, but we can definitely make some stuff happen if needed. Then from there, once you really understand the quarries that we have available to us, how we extract our material, and next how we process our material, you got to begin to understand the finished goods as a whole. This is a project we did here in Wisconsin. It's actually on Elkhart Lake, just all tumbled Fond du Lac split face material. And we've really got 5 different predominant cuts that we call our material as a company, and when we're branding, this is what we use. So this is without a doubt our #1 bestseller. We typically have 1 to 2 thin saws on this at all times and at least 2 splitters. All of our material, that's called a stone ridge. So when you see our product identification, you'll see 2 different terms. You'll see #1, the material name, whether it's Fond du Lac, Sierra Gray, Northern Rustic, Carbon, Buff. Those are going to be your quarry basically the origin quarries. The next term in there is going to be your cut. This is our stone ridge, which is just a natural machine split, natural cleft product. Very cost effective, very easy to install. We move quite a bit of this material on a daily basis. Your next cut that we have, we call it our fortress rock. So out of Wisconsin, you don't get a lot of height out of your blocks. So if you need height, you need to drive it out of the bed face. So our basically our answer to a larger profile squares and rects is using our bed face here in Wisconsin, and our bed face squares and rects profile here is our Fortress Rock, and this is our Sierra Gray Northern Rustic Fortress Rock. Very similar product to what we used on that Pebble Beach project. This material just has a mortar joint because of the Midwest application. We need to have a closed wall cavity. When you saw those bridge saws passing back and forth in that block, basically controlling the height of the material, this is the product they were producing. We call a sawn height material with a mortar joint. In our collection, we call that our dimensional material. So predominantly we're at a 2 1/4, a 5, a 7 3/4, 10 1/2, and a 13 1/4 height for our standard heights. As you get taller, you tend to get just a touch more expensive because we have a little bit more waste in our material as we begin processing larger blocks. But this material here is our Fond du Lac dimensional. The next material, very similar to our Stone Ridge, is just a cobble. So basically, if we're looking for taller heights and shorter lengths, we'll just throw it into our cobble collection. This is our buff material from that Rudiger pit that was a little bit more of a rubble quarry than an actual ledge quarry. And then our final profile that we'll do is our ledgestone material. The ledgestone is that 12-blade dry stack saw that we began doing the bed ledge with the natural height. Historically, here in the Midwest, we won't lay this exterior, but out there in the California market, you can definitely lay this exterior just as water will get into the cavity wall here in the Midwest and cause a freeze thaw issue. But out by you guys, without a freeze thaw, you guys should have no issue with this. So. And as a company, I mean, that's what we got for you here. Any questions right off the bat here?
No, I think I'm good. That was awesome. Thanks, Reed.
Yeah, Liz, you're definitely good. You've seen it all in person.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, stay in touch. Reach out if you guys need anything. I am planning on coming out in January, so I'll make sure to reach out to everybody, and we can rock and roll from there.
I actually have a question, Reed.
Yeah.
What product would you say is most popular right now?
As a company, our Fond du Lac Stone Ridge sells the most. As we begin to move our distribution out west, our Sierra Gray material has been extremely popular. I would say that that's gaining traction a heck of a lot quicker than our Fond du Lac material, just because it's a pretty unique product and it fits a color range that's had a void out there. So as far as revenue goes, our Fond du Lac Stone Ridge is our #1 selling product. As far as a growth product, as far as trends are going, I would say our Sierra Gray Fortress Rock and our Sierra Gray Stone Ridge. Cool. Well, stay in touch, guys. Appreciate everything. You guys have been awesome to work with, and we'll keep it rolling for you. If you need anything, reach out anytime.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate your participation and hope it was of your liking. With this presentation, that concludes this year's Product Knowledge Seminar Series. If you were unable to join any of the past sessions, go on over to our YouTube channel where you will be able to access all of the past recorded sessions. Once again, I would like to thank Reed for taking time today to share his knowledge with all of us. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thanks, Reed.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Take care.